We play and call it work.
Hey there, MiniWarGamers. Quirk here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to this week's Sit and Talk featuring me, Quirk. Hi. Just a quick reminder for you guys, next week's Sit and Talk is going to be with Dave, so if you have any questions or comments for him, leave them in the comment section below, starting off with Dave, and then your comment or question or whatever you would like. If you're watching this on YouTube, just go ahead and click the link in the description to go to MiniWarGaming.com, and you can go ahead and leave a comment or question for him there. But this is going to be 30 minutes. I've got a good list of comments and questions here. So starting off, we have Grimjaw1. Quirk, what is your favorite historical time period and why? Probably the Roman era. For some reason, I really enjoy just how all the stories that you ever hear historical at some point in time happened in a Roman time period. So anytime you hear like a battle strategy, it's like, okay, well, we got this battle strategy from the Romans. Or if you have a lot of like basic storylines will actually draw back to a story that was told in a Roman time period. And that's just something I really enjoy. On top of all of that, I just like their whole civilization and the way their economy worked and just the way everything kind of came together. And on top of all of that, all the good Hollywood movies that I personally enjoy are usually based around some sort of a Roman time period. So that's probably why. But that's my favorite time period. Lord Red Panda. Hey Quirk, I have an orc question. What do you feel is the best semi-competitive orc list? Currently, I'm thinking a biker squad, but was wondering if you have any other suggestions. Also, do you have any suggestions on how to convert a war boss on a bike or Zadsnark da Ripa? Well, to answer your first question, semi-competitive, there's not a whole lot for orcs that are really super competitive. For the most part, they're just a fun army to play. The only time I've ever seen orcs played at a tournament, there's two lists that people usually brought. One was a very speed freak heavy army where it was a lot of bikes, a lot of trucks, and the whole idea to it was just you get across the board really quickly, take as minimal casualties as you possibly can, and just engage everybody in combat. This works really well until you start fighting things that have really good melee units that are in your way. Another list that works is a mech or a heavy armor list where it's just a lot of Def Dreads and Morkanauts, Gorkanauts, mechs, artillery, things like that, because it's a very shooty army. Now granted, orc shooting isn't the greatest, but when they basically make up for it with volume of fire, and when they do hit, it usually does some damage. Those are the only two lists that I've ever seen that really do well competitively. A lot of people like to take the mix lists. I personally like taking mix lists where you have speed freaks, you have the mechs, you have tons and tons of boys, and they're fun to play, but at the same time, they don't have anything that they do really well. It's kind of a jack of all trades list, as opposed to just like you got that one that's really good at getting engaged in combat. You have that one that's really good at shooting. As soon as you start mixing the list together and try and do some sort of a combination with orcs, you have a really hard time making that work really well. It'll play really well, but it's very easy to counter because it's very easy to pick off what you want. And because of the survivability of orcs, it's very easy to just kind of take them out with basic bolter fire as an example. As for converting a war boss on a bike or Zadsnark da Ripa, I haven't done a lot of converting with bikes. A lot of the stuff that was that I usually use was already here when I started. From what I can tell for the war boss, though, whoever built the first one did was they took a regular war bike and took the body, and instead of putting the knob on it, took a war boss body, cut the body off of that and stuck that on instead, so it had the head and the body of a war boss, and then just use the arms and positioning and a little bit of green stuff to kind of coordinate it so that he's holding on to the handlebars of the war bike itself. There's also the option of just completely scratch building one, which is what I think we have here, and whoever had it basically took a war bike, some last cannons, and a bunch of other little bits and kind of stuck them all together to make what looks like a chopper, for like an Orange County chopper. And just did the same thing again where they took a regular war biker knob and stuck a war boss body on it and green stuffed the arms and everything into place. As for Zadsnark da Ripa, I don't really have much of a suggestion for that. A lot of people like to use the Forge World model. I think that works fine. If you're looking to do something custom, I don't really know. You could probably take a named character and just convert him up a little bit and throw him on a bike. But that's the best I got for you there. The Eye of Night. Quirk, for those of us hoping to one day make the pilgrimage to MiniWarGaming, what are some personal do's and don'ts for guests? Ooh. Okay. One thing that I'm definitely going to say right off the bat is we usually try and get you guys to come in around 9:30 a.m. But every now and then we get people, obviously it's exciting to come and people want to come in a little bit earlier. It actually makes it a little bit difficult for us because usually we're here at 9 o'clock. So from 9 to 9:30 is our chance to sit down, answer emails, set up the board for the game and get everything kind of prepped. Whereas when our guests show up at 9 o'clock, it kind of takes that time away from us. And obviously 30 minutes isn't a long time, but it's enough time for us to get everything ready. And when we have guests come in and do that, we feel kind of bad because you're kind of standing there not really doing anything, or you're kind of wandering around. We'll give you a tour and everything, but it kind of hinders us a little bit for getting everything prepped for that day. And it also makes it a little bit difficult for us to kind of get our day started, where we go and we answer our emails, we get everything set up, we make sure everything from the day before went through properly. So yeah, that's the only thing I can possibly think of for don'ts, is just don't come in earlier than the 9:30 mark, because that way we get that chance. Some personal do's. Oh, I'm trying to think of what some personal do's would be. I can't really think of it, because for the most part when we have guests come in, I can't really think of anything where I'm like, I really wish they didn't do that, or wow, I really I like what they did there. One thing that does help us out quite a bit is just if you're very, not so much talkative, but you're not camera shy. Obviously being in front of a camera is a little bit intimidating, but if you can get past that fear and just understand that, you know what, you're playing a game, you just play the game you normally would, it makes it for a much better battle report. It helps us build that rapport. Another thing is just don't be shy. We're all people. When you come in here, we get some people that are just like, oh, hi, oh, okay, and it throws us off a little bit, because we're like, we're gonna play a tabletop game. That's all we're doing. We're playing this game. It's supposed to be fun, and when you're really, really shy towards us, it makes it a little bit difficult for us to kind of interact with you and have a good battle report for that rapport. So if you're normally a very outgoing person, but you're kind of like, oh, I don't know what I should or shouldn't do here, and I'm a little bit intimidated, just be yourself. It makes it a lot more entertaining on camera, and it makes it much easier to kind of relate to you as a person. It makes for a better battle report. You definitely get a better exchange when you have that banter going on during the game, or when people are arguing or smack talking and stuff like that. It definitely makes it much more entertaining. But those are the two things I can really think of for do's and don'ts. I'm sure other people have other things that they would say, but yeah, I got nothing. Twisted Razor. Quirk, could you do a 360 on all the Gorka Morka vehicles, especially Lee's truck? He doesn't do sit and talk. Seeing as you're the orc man, I'll ask you. Happy wargaming. Yeah, give me a minute. There you go. Bomar. Okay. Quirk, hey there. Don't know if anyone has asked here before, but any chance we could see... Oh, whoa, wow, I'm all over the place with this one. But any chance you could show. Okay, there we go. There's a space there that threw me off. Could share how you got that shiny blurple on your Alpha Legion. I love how it looks, and I would love to paint up a few models like that. Keep up the good work. I can't really show you, but I can kind of explain what I did. Games Workshop actually released something similar to what I've been doing for painting my Alpha Legion. I think I actually have one right here. There we go. A little dusty. So to get that like bluish, purplish shine to it, what I do is I actually take, pardon me, I take the model and I prime it black, obviously, put the primer coat down. Sorry. Oh, the dust is in my throat. There we go. Then what I do is I prime it with, or sorry, I spray coat it with a some sort of a metallic silver. So usually what I'll do for this one is I'll do either an airbrushed Mithril silver, or you can use bulk metal or anything like that. So it gets a nice, good shiny coat to it. And then what I do is I take our ghost tints, and I use ghost tint blue for the Alpha Legion. Another one you can use is plasma fluid. After looking at the plasma fluid, I kind of wish I did that for all of mine. We very lightly spray that up until the bulk gunmetal has more of a blue tinge to it. And then once that's done, what you want to do is actually put a matte coat on top of it. Because if you don't put the matte coat on top of it, what ends up happening is it has this wicked shine to it, to the point where, for us anyway on camera, it catches a lot of the fluorescent lights above, and it just makes the army look really, really like reflectively shiny. So I put the matte coat on to kind of dull that down. It still keeps the shine to it, but that's just for filming purposes. That's not for personal preference. So if you want to keep them super, super shiny like that, don't put the matte coat. But it's about a 3-step process. So you do the primer, you do the metal coat, and then you just do some sort of a ghost tint on top of it. And the ghost tint basically just turns the silver color into a metallic, whatever color you're ghost tinting it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I do. It took about 4 different tries before I got it to the color I wanted it to. The first time I did it, I ended up making a like a metallic green. It looked like a salamander by the time it was done, because it was a metallic green and purple color. It almost looked two-tone. I was like, oh, that's weird looking. Let me try that again. So finally I got it to the pre-heresy blurple, as you describe it, that I wanted the Alpha Legion to look like. So yeah, that's what I did for them. Hopefully that helps. Reichel, Quirk, if you could instantly become an expert in any one thing that is physically possible, what would you choose? Also, could you tell another Horde story? I really enjoyed the last one. Oh, if I could become really, really good at something. I'm thinking right now the only thing I could think of that would be really, really helpful is throwing my dice so that I get a specific number, because my dice rolls are just terrible. And I think it's starting to actually like drain into my video game playing, because I was playing More Time and like the computer game, and it was showing that I had like an 86% chance of hitting. I was like, 86%, that's pretty good. So I did it, and I swung, and I missed. And I was like, okay, well, I have another attack. Let me try that again. Still 86%. Swung, missed again. I was like, okay, well, I have one more attack. It's my last one. I'm going to basically forfeit this to do anything else. Went for it, missed again. I was like, 86% chance, and I missed 3 times. Ugh. So yeah, I would want to be able to rig my dice rolls a little bit. If I could pick one other thing, I'd like to be able to just, I went to school for computer programming, and I'd love to be able to just become really, really good at it. I was okay at it in college, but it wasn't something that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something I was very, very good at. I couldn't just look at code and be like, oh, I need to change this, this, and this, and that will get rid of all the errors. I was the kind of guy who's like, oh, if I fix this problem, run it, and then see 9 more errors show up. I'm like, oh. So I try and fix those 9 errors, and then it would make 25 errors. I'm like, ah, what is going on? So yeah, that would be something that I would want to fix. And you want another Horde story? Okay. I can think of one. It's more of a Warmachine and Hordes, because their storylines intermingle quite a bit. But it's how Legion of Everblight became. So to tell you how that happened, I have to actually tell you how Crix became. Again, this is how Warmachine works. It's like, this didn't happen until this happened, and that didn't happen until this happened. So in the beginning of time, when everything was fighting each other, so you had the Devour Worm fighting Duna, I think her name is, as well as our Menoth and all that stuff. There was a creature that was on Imoran called Torok, basically, and he was the grandfather dragon. So basically, he's a dragon of immense size. If you were to look at the map and see that little island of where Crix is, his body would take up about probably 25% of that area. And so he's this dragon that's flying through Imoran. There's not a lot of stuff around, and he decides he's getting kind of lonely, and he has this ability where well, dragons in Amoran have an ability where if their heart is, if they're dead, if basically their body is destroyed but their heart remains, their body can actually regrow from that. So what he did was he took his heart and he shattered it into multiple pieces, and from those multiple pieces grew lesser dragons. And he was basically, since he was lonely, he made these dragons to try and, you know, have some company. Well, he made the dragons, and they ended up over a long period of time revolting against him. Sound familiar? Horus Heresy. And so there was this giant battle between them where they found out that if they kill one another and consume their heart, they get stronger. So they figured what the myth or the theory was between all the lesser dragons was that if they consume each other till there's one remaining, they would be strong enough to beat Torok and consume his heart, and they'd be the new grand Godfather dragon. So there was all this infighting within all the different dragons and stuff like that. And during this time, the Torok basically went to the Crix Islands and just resided there. Now he has this immense energy that emulates from him called Blight, and that's how you end up getting all these blighted warriors and stuff like that in Warmachine. And what happens is when you're basically tainted by Blight, you get these weird effects to you. So you get like hunger for souls and things like that. There's a list of different things that Blight can do to you, but for the most part, it just converts your body. That's actually totally going off track here, but Asphyxius for Crix was actually a druid for Circle. Went up, saw the Dragon Father, and was like, you know what? That thing that I believed before, that's not true. You're actually the coolest guy around here. I'm paraphrasing here. What he really said was something along the lines of, you're basically the one I think is God. And so what Torok did was basically destroy his body and rebuild it in a mechanical form containing his soul and making one of the first Lich Lords. So weird little story there. Anyway, so all these dragons are infighting and stuff like that. Well, one dragon by the name of Everblight flies super far north and decides, okay, well, I can't seem to win against my fellow dragon brothers because they're much stronger than I am. So he kind of went the Loki way and decided to, instead of fighting on his own, he's going to build up an army and use that army to fight his brothers. So during that time when he was up north, he basically started to recruit different factions from different places and give them Blight. And one of the main factions that went to this dragon was the Retribution of Cyrus. So they ended up constantly going north and seeing him and getting converted, which is where you get like the Nis Hunters and the Blighted Swordsmen and stuff like that. They're actually all elves. And so that's how you kind of get the whole birthing, or the whole Legion of Everblight, is because these people are going up to this dragon, getting consumed by his Blight energy and becoming something else. And then on top of all that, their whole thing is that every war beast you see is actually a part of Everblight, because he's using blighted energy to build these creatures from scratch. So that's why a lot of the creatures that you see look like they're weird mutations, or they almost look like they're basically birthed from a spawning vessel, and then they grow from there. So you get like shredders, and they can grow up into different sizes and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's how you get Legion of Everblight, and that's also kind of how you get Crix. That's actually how you do get Crix. But there's my little story there. I'm paraphrasing and cutting out a lot of different things there for the sake of time, because last time you guys asked me to do this, I took up half the episode talking about it. So, but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. Honestly, if you're super interested in the Warmachine and Horde stories, grab some of the books and just read through them. They're an awesome read, and it's just their storyline and timeline, the way everything works, is super, super concise and just awesome. I get a little bit frustrated with it though, because I'll be reading through like the rule book, and I'll see like this one little line where it's just like, and there was a battle between for Thromar, which was basically a fight between Menoth and Thorin warriors. And it's just like this one little line. I'm like, that's it? That's all they do to acknowledge this battle? Because in like the first No Quarter, or No Quarter 45, I think, they actually have like this huge 6-page story about it and a custom game scenario for it. And I'm like, the rulebook gave it this one little line in the lore, but the No Quarter gave it like this huge epic story where it was awesome, and like this one guy just became the hero and got blessed by Menoth and went super like crazy god mode, I guess, and just killed everybody. And it's like, okay. And all you do to acknowledge that is give it one line in the rulebook? Okay. So, a little bit of frustration there with me. That's my rant, I'm done. Okay, I lost my spot. There we go. Mr. Ed, or is it M. Red? I'm going to go with Mr. Ed. 2577. Hey Quirk, not that Lee is more comfortable in front of the camera, when are his sit and talks starting? I have no idea. I honestly have literally no idea about that. That's something that he and Matt have to talk about and figure out if something that he wants to do. So yeah, I have no idea. Broglenny? Brogli. I don't know. I'm sorry. Some of your names are all over the place here. Quirk, what are your favorite aspects about the armies that you play in 40k and 30k? What is it that makes you really excited to play them? In 40k for Orks, I just really like not their lore, their playstyle. I just like that you go, and I'm used to playing games where it's just like, oh, I'm used to playing like Infinity, where if I lose a guy, it's a huge loss to you. Or if I'm playing Warmachine, where it's like, if I've lost my Warjack, that's a huge loss to me. But you play Orks and it's like, oh, I lost like my truck, meh. Oh, I've lost 20 boys, that's okay, I've got like 80 more. So it's just the volume that they have. I love being able to just throw wave and wave and wave after a guy at my opponent and just be like, you know what, you're killing like 30 guys at a time. Barely even affects my army. Whereas I'm used to it being like, oh, you killed one of my dudes, I'm in trouble. Another one that I really like is the Harlequins. I like their lore. I just like their whole, the life is a show and we're all the players in it. So I think that's really, really cool. And just like mostly the Solitaire. I like the Solitaire's lore, where he's a individual who has basically sworn a life of solitude. He can't talk to anybody else, he can't be with anybody else. When everybody's together, he has to be somewhere else. He's always alone, and it plays out on the board where it's just like he's got all these rules that prevent him from doing anything involving other people, but on his own he's just amazing. And it's like, okay, I understand now. And on top of that, he has to, like, he basically carries the weight of something. I don't remember off the top of my head what it is, but he basically has to, I think it has something to do with Slanesh, where he basically has to hold a mark or something like that. Someone in the comments will correct it, but I like that. And then just Ultramarines. Everybody, this is another reason why the time period thing comes into play, because I always think of Ultramarines as Rome, obviously, because they've got like all the Roman stuff, but everybody's like, oh, Ultramarines are super boring. No, they're awesome, because it's the perfect, it's not perfect, but they've got the military and battle thing almost down to an art form, where you have your formations, you have everybody, it's like somebody with OCD's dream, where everything has a place, and if it's in its place, it does what it's supposed to do perfectly. If it's not in its place, you'll know because it's not doing what it's supposed to do. I'm just a huge fan of things working like clockwork, where this will work if this works, and when the two things work together, it's magical. And that's just one of the main reasons I like Ultramarines. They play so well to the whole exactly as planned theme. Granted, my dice rolls don't always go exactly as planned, but I do enjoy Ultramarines. And then Alpha Legion is just Alpha Legion. They're super, super sneaky. They're super tricky. They're always like, they're the one person who you can never truly trust, and they're like a whole army of that, and that's just awesome to me. And then their lore, as broken apart and as like little bits here and there it is from the Legion book, it's like, yeah, they're awesome. The thing that's icing on the cake for me with them is the whole, when they're not talking to each other, everyone is Alfarius. And I love how much that messes with people. It's sweet. So, Dazarid. Dazarid? Dazarid. I'm gonna call you Dazarid. Hey Quirk, if you could choose a faction in 40k, Hordes, and Warmachine to not exist, what would it be? Necrons. Nope. Yep. Actually, no. I'm gonna go with Necrons for 40k, just because, yeah, they have a lot of lore to it, but the thing is, if you look at the whole lore of everything, if you got rid of them as a whole, it wouldn't change that much with what's going on with everybody else. Yeah, there'd be a couple stories and battles that had changed, but they aren't a huge influence in the 40k universe compared to everybody else. And also when they play, they're just kind of dumb, but they've got like, I liked it more when they were more of a mysterious race and nobody really knew what they were, especially with Gorka Morka, where it was just like, oh, they had this green mist and they were mysterious things and they're just metal beings that recreate themselves. It was cool then, because it was like, I don't know what these are, but they're terrifying. And then the Games Workshop was like, hey, you know that thing that's terrifying and just super scary? Let's make that a playable race. And it was like, oh, well, now we know everything about them. It's no longer a mystery. I love the unknown. It's just super cool to me. As for Warmachine and Hordes, they're the army I play the most, or at least they're the army I have the most of, but I would have to say Convergence. Same rules as Necrons. They don't have a huge influence on the storyline. They're there, they've had their input every now and then, but they haven't really done much in the past. And more recently, now they've become a playable faction, their stories have, they've been more of an influence in it, but for the most part, they didn't need to be a playable race. They could have been just another race, like the Ogryn, for example. The Ogryn aren't a playable race in Warmachine and Hordes, but they have their influence in the storyline and in the story arc and everything like that. So I don't think they need to be a playable race or a playable faction. They're fun. They're super fun to play, but I don't think they needed to be that. They could have, Privateer Press could have focused more on building all the other factions that they have available. So that's my 2 cents. So even though, again, it's the army I have the most of, go figure. Oh, another one from Dazred. Quirk, also, what do you think of Fandexes? Do you think they help balance over/underpowered armies, or do they just act as a way for people to make their armies the best, and would you ever play against one? I'm specifically thinking of those TG boards on 4chan that the community updates with every edition, if you've ever looked at one. I haven't really looked at one. I've heard people in the office talking about them. It depends on who writes them. There's 2 types of people I can think of that would write them. There's the one person who wants to make the army a playable army, where they can pretty much be a formidable force against every other army. And then there's the other people who basically, so those are the people that are trying to fix the codexes. They're trying to make everything usable. They're trying to make everything playable. They aren't trying to make it overpowered. They're just trying to make it a presence on the board. Then you've got the other people who are just trying to make their particular army super overpowered. So you've got people with Orks who are just like, well, say me for example, where it's like, oh, Ludas? I feel like they need 2 wounds. Let's give them 2 wounds. As you've seen with games with me, giving Ludas 2 wounds is a little bit broken. That was my bad. But I can see people wanting to do stuff like that, where they're like, okay, this army, this isn't doing very well. I'd like it to do better. No, I want it to do more than better. Let's go ahead and give commandos charging after scout moves, or charging after infiltrate, and no overwatch. And you know what, let's go ahead and bump their weapon skill up a little bit, because you know they're trained fighters, they know how to fight. Well, now you've gone ahead and made one of the most underutilized units in Orks suddenly something that's just, people are going to spam them because they're just super overpowered. And it's stuff like that where people, I don't think they gauge very much on how much their Fandex is actually going to affect something, and because of that they make something go from being not very competitive to, they kind of reach that point where it's like, okay, it's somewhat competitive and playable now, to, oh, you broke it. And a lot of people are just going straight from it's somewhat competitive to you broke it really, really fast. There's a very small margin for that, I think. So, would I ever play against one? I'd like to read it first and just see how overpowered the person made it. If they didn't make it super overpowered, or if they dropped the power level down a little bit. For example, with Necrons, if they went back to like the old rules for it, where it was, or even just like eliminating the re-rolling ones on the reanimation, for example, or making it so you only reanimate on a 5+, then yeah, I'd be down for that. It would kind of be like going back to the old rules for Necrons. But yeah, I don't know. I might want to try it. But Jackie Nids, Quirk. When we see you and Josh face each other, oh, it's a question mark, okay. When we see you and Josh face each other in 40K, and I would like to see you, Quirk, play with your strongest army that you would like to have Josh play his Cult Mechanicus. Been waiting for you two to face each other. Thanks for all the great content. Keep it up. Yeah, I think Josh and I have played 40K a couple times. I don't think we've actually filmed it. We played 30K quite a bit. We haven't played 40K. And you say you want to see me bring my strongest army against his Cult Mechanicus. Depends on which army you'd want me to bring. I'm assuming you want me to bring Orks. And I don't know how well that would go. I'm trying to think what my most competitive list would be, and it would probably be, again, Orc and Mega Armor in a battle wagon with a bunch of knobs, give the Orc War Boss a lucky stick, throw a Pain Boy in there for Feel No Pain. That would be my Death Star, and I would just try as hard as I possibly could to throw that at him. But he has a lot of stuff that could slow down that truck. And now I'm playing out the game in my head. There you go. There you go. Thanks, Jackie Niz. Now I've got to have to deal with that. Conkle. For Quirk, or whoever it may concern, how in the tournament scene are any of you guys at MiniWarGaming? What's your thought about the ITC? I'm going to answer your second question first. We love the ITC for like 99% of it. It helps with a lot of rules disputes that we get where we don't have to house. We follow a lot of the ITC rules here, but we usually will follow it almost to a T, and then every now and then there's some things where like, that doesn't really apply for us because it usually comes down to the terrain that we have. We're using terrain in boards that Games Workshop and the ITC and stuff like that don't normally use in the tournament scene. Usually in tournament scenes you see very flat 1 to maybe 2 level terrain pieces, and they're very dispersed, and you might see maybe anywhere from 3 to 12 pieces of terrain. Whereas here we're throwing down per match 10 pieces of terrain plus scatter terrain plus decorating stuff, so we're making the boards look good, but as a result we get tons of terrain that conflicts with the ITC as well as the regular rulebook's rules. So that's the only time I think we ever had discrepancies with the ITC, is when it comes down to the terrain rules. So also for your second question, how do we do in tournaments? Oh, the only 2 tournaments that I've been to with the guys from MiniWarGaming, there's the Age of Sigmar one. When it first came out, we went to Black Knight Games and played, and we took first, second, and third. Steve took first, I took second, and Colin took third. And as a result from that, there's no more tournaments at Black Knight. Apparently, us going there and bringing our like B+ game, which is what we were told to bring, was a little too much, and yeah, now people don't want to play it anymore because everybody's taking the list that we brought, and it's just whoever gets to go first wins. So we kind of broke, we broke Age of Sigmar. I almost said Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar at Black Knight. And then for the second one, we went to a tournament at a place called the Geekery in Niagara Falls. And that was more of a fun one. It was more of a, hey, like MiniWarGaming is going to be there, come and say hi and meet the guys and stuff like that. So when we asked the organizer, like what levels should we bring, he was saying that, well, there's going to be a mix of people there. For the most part, people are, you know, generally casual players, so there's not going to be a lot of tournament stuff. We're like, okay, so bring like our B+, A- game. He's like, yeah, that should be fine. So Steve brought his Necrons, but he didn't bring Takirian. He just brought like the general Necron list. Chris brought his jet bike spam, and I brought Harlequins. And I brought Harlequins because it's not something you get to see very often, and the Harlequin army that we have here is painted beautifully, so I kind of wanted to show that off a little bit, take it to a place to be like, hey guys, check out this awesome army. You can play all kinds of stuff like that when you come to MiniWarGaming. So it was more of a promotional thing for me being there. And there was literally like the full range of players. There was people who had never played before. This was their first game, playing for the first time, and then you had the people who were like, we are veteran tournament, like we go to tournaments all around the world, and we're like, huh, okay. So the first game I played against a Tau player, and this was Harlequins versus Tau, and I ended up winning the first game, which was weird. Steve won his first game, and Chris won his first game. So we won all of our first 3 games. We all won major victories. The second pairing, I was paired with Steve, and as a result, he and I were like, oh, we have to play each other. Huh. It's Necrons versus Harlequins. This is going to go terrible for me. And we had a table off in the corner a little bit of ways away from everybody, but as a result, they were like, oh, Quirk and Steve are going to play. Oh man, we got to go see this game. So people were actually like stopping their games for a minute to go and watch us play. And Steve and I looked at each other, we're like, I guess we have to play this now. We were both just going to be like, Steve wins, because we could already tell how this was going to play out. There was no way I could beat him. And they were like, okay, well, we want to watch you play. And we're both like, okay, this is going to go good. And Steve almost tabled me top of turn 1. Top of turn 1, he almost tabled me. So they were all like, oh, wow, Quirk, you're really bad at this. I'm like, no, it's Necrons and Harlequins. This doesn't work. This is not, okay, thanks guys. Thanks for being considerate. So Steve was even apologizing the entire time. He's like, man, I feel bad. Like, I feel so bad. Oh, and he's rolling dice and he's getting like perfect rolls. And I'm like, ugh, gross. And I'm rolling nothing but 1s for all of my saves. So it didn't go very well for me. So he ended up getting another major victory. And it was a four round tournament. So and then Chris, I think, won his as well. So then the third round, I got paired against a Grey Knight player, and it got to the point where it was very back and forth. That was a really good game. But Steve had to play a guy, and this is where it got a little bit skewed, because we were like, okay, you know, lists are fair. Like the list I had played beforehand, the Tau guy, he brought a fairly good list. The Grey Knight player, he brought a fairly good list. It's nothing I wouldn't expect to see. And then I walk over to Steve's table, and he's playing a guy who has allied Eldar with Tau. And I was like, whoa, okay. And Steve's almost completely tabled because the Eldar are flying all over the board, the Tau are flying all over the board, and just the amount of shots and everything flying at Steve is just too much for him to handle. And the actual like objectives on the board were a little bit weird too, so he was just completely flustered. And afterwards he's like, he wanted to be organizer, and he was like, you said to bring like our B plus A minus game. He's like, yeah, why? He's like, that was a tournament list. That was like an Adepticon tournament winning list. And the guy played it beautifully. And he's like, oh yeah, it's like we get some people who go to Adepticon. And Steve's like, huh, I wish I brought some other of those lists. Because he was originally playing on Ring, something like that. So, and then we ended up playing one more match. And the mission I got at the very end was basically get your guys off the edge of the board. And I'm like, I'm playing Harlequins. I could do that turn one. I told my opponent, I was like, I can do this turn one. Like, are you sure? And he was playing Astra Militarum, Guard. And he's like, yeah, man, if that's what you do, that's what you do. I'm like, okay. So I rolled, I won the roll off, I deployed first. He stole the initiative and tabled me. I'm like, oh. He's like, yeah, what were you saying about beating me? I was like, I didn't expect that to happen. I was planning on just turn one going off the board. Huh. Okay, never mind. So, yeah, that didn't go very well for me. And then the last match, Steve and Chris played each other, and I think Steve won. So, all in all, I placed, out of, I think it was about 40 people there, I placed 15th for all the points and everything. Steve placed 7th, and Chris placed, I think, 10th. So we did pretty good there out of the volume of people, but it was a good tournament. We've been planning on going to other ones. I think I'm actually going to a tournament on this Saturday. I'm filming this on Thursday, so this coming Saturday there's a Warmachine tournament that I'm planning on going to for Mark III, so that should be good. Hopefully I can make it out there. But yeah, so that's the answer for the tournament scene. We do pretty good, but yeah, for the most part, whenever I go, I usually do it to try and promote MiniWarGaming, being like, hey man, if you want to come in and play and like stomp me on camera, you're more than welcome to. And so the Uninvisible Man 1. Quirk, did you assemble that new PC you used to play Total War Warhammer yourself, or did you buy it already made from a store? I scratch built this. This is my pride and joy right there. So, also you mentioned in an open vault that you have been working out. Did you have a routine for how much you do a week? What's the story behind all the workout gear being in MiniWarGaming anyhow? I do have a routine. It's literally just like biceps, triceps one day, then I do chest and abs, then I do back and shoulders. Repeat. No cardio, and I skip leg day. I don't skip leg day. Dave forces me to do leg day every day, so I don't bother doing it. So, as for the workout gear at MiniWarGaming, I think that was back, this has been there for a while, but I think that was back when Dave did his first working out, losing weight, getting in shape thing. He ended up buying it all, and it's just been in the studio since, and that's going back probably 3-4 years now. So that's been here for a while. Okay, next up we have Drew 999. Quirk, scream wog like a boss. No, mostly because there's a mic right here, and it would, no, I don't want to do that to somebody's poor computer, especially if you have headphones on. Also, pick an orc unit you wish was more competitive because you like the lore / model. Commandos. Orc commandos. I love them so much. Why can't they be good? I like the orc commandos because they're literally like they're one of them and Grotz. I find them to be one of the most hilarious units in the lore because they do pretty much anything. And one guy actually built a model based on it where they took a rhino and built it and then cut it into 6 pieces and had orcs basically holding all the pieces to it. And it basically said like, not orcs, umis on it. I was like, that's hilarious. And then I read the lore and I was like, that's actually what they do. That's amazing. So, but they're not super competitive. They're not even very good in the codex as a whole. Like compared to everything else, they're still not one of the greatest things out there. And I wish they were better because they're just super easy to shoot off the board. Yeah, they get some wicked cover saves, but as soon as they're out of that cover, they're just dead. And then Grotz. I just wish Grotz were better, but they're Grotz. We can't really expect much from them. Okay, I got time for one more. Chunks 007. Quirk was wondering what your favorite faction in X-Wing, and if anyone at MiniWarGaming has played X-Wing competitive has played X-Wing in a competitive tournament. My favorite faction is still Rebels. I like the good guys. As weird as that sounds, but yeah, I like the good guys. I like being able to take like Luke and Han and the Millennium Falcon and Boba Fett and stuff like that. I know Boba Fett's not technically scum, but whatever. I like them. As for playing competitive, no. I've walked in on a couple tournaments and wanted to play, but I didn't have any miniatures available. And I've been trying to talk Josh into going with me to a tournament sometime. So hopefully we'll be able to figure something out for that. Anyway, guys, that is it for the first 30 minutes of your your sit and talk. There we go. If you guys want to go ahead and click the link below, you'll be able to see another 30 minutes in the vault for our sit and vault. If you're not already a vault member, you can go ahead and click that anyway. It will get access to a 7-day free trial where you get to see all the stuff in the vault, as well as more of me talking, as well as everybody else. You get access to more battle reports, open vaults, behind the scenes, as well as more painted tutorials and things like that. So go ahead and check that out. And one more reminder, guys, next week will be Dave, so if you want to leave a question or comment for him, just go into the comment section below, put Dave at the beginning, and just your question or comments that he knows it's for him. But there you go, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the vault, and happy wargaming.